All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Nittany Lions. Penn State goes to camp just about a week from right now. We got Tim Aiden on the line for Black Shoe Diaries. Join him and the rest of the crew right there for Penn State football coverage. Lock it in right here at the voice of college football. Help us build the channel by grabbing that Amazon link in the description section below. Do your regular Amazon shopping right there. Don't have to do anything different. Just grab the link and do your regular shopping right there. Tim, how's the summer going?
It's going good. Finally getting a reprieve from last weekend's heat wave here. I don't know if you guys felt it up in New England area.
Yeah, about 100.
Yeah, that's what it was like down here too in the DC area.
Very good. Very good. Well, I anytime anybody complains about the heat, and I don't like it that hot, 85's just about right. 80 to 85 in the summer. Yeah, 100's a bit much, and it touched 100 just barely, but a lot of 97s for several days, but that's a bit much. But anytime anybody complains about the summer, I just figure, hey, it's the summer. This is what you get, and I'd rather have it be 90 than 20. So that's what I'm not looking forward to when football season comes and the latter stages of football season. All right, Penn State's a week away from camp. They went to Big Ten Media Days last week. There was an announcement, and this kind of piles on to all the defections during the offseason when you talk about the regular graduation losses, and then on top of that, 5 early defections to the NFL draft. On top of that, 11 transfer portal defections, and now a couple suspensions that don't necessarily hurt from a tangible aspect of that these kids are going to be available for camp, but who knows, the progress was lost based on their loss during the individual workouts.
Yeah, so last week at Big Ten Media Days, James Franklin announced that starting defensive end Yetur Gross-Matos and backup running back Journey Brown had both been suspended for the entire summer session at Penn State. I should clarify, this was apparently the university's decision. They were not allowed on campus, period, for the summer. It was not a decision that was up to James Franklin or the team. So for Yetur's perspective, it's not going to affect him. He's pretty much sharpied in as a starter at this point. It hurts Journey Brown more because obviously not being there for the voluntary summer workouts and getting some serious reps in the weight room with Dwight Galt there by his side. It definitely hurts him as far as he seemed to be poised to be the backup to Ricky Slade, who's presumably going to be the starter at running back. But now it seems as if Noah Kane, the true freshman who I mentioned, I think in prior broadcasts, really impressed in the spring game. It sounds like Kane is now the number 2 guy, or moving into that number 2 slot behind Slade. And Devin Ford, another blue chip running back who came in during the summer. It sounds like he is making some progress too, from what I've been reading. And so for Journey Brown, this is definitely going to set him back, and he's going to have some ground to make up when he comes back next Friday for the start of fall camp. As far as Yetur, the one thing that hurts for him is just obviously he can't be there working out with the team, using their facilities. But I'm sure he's doing something back where he is down in I think it's Fredericksburg, Virginia area. But I wouldn't be concerned about him losing a spot. The only question at this point is just whether Franklin himself will throw any additional punishment. I should point out, I don't think I mentioned what the suspensions are for. There was a fight at a fraternity back in the winter, and I guess the cameras captured Yetur, Journey Brown, Tariq Castro Fields, and I believe it was another player. Name I can't remember. So it should be pointed out, no one besides Tariq Castro Fields was charged of anything. Castro Fields was charged of disorderly conduct, but the university for some reason didn't mete out any suspension on him, nor has Franklin announced any discipline being taken against Castro Fields. Although maybe there's some internal punishment going on that we don't know of, and that's frankly none of our business unless Franklin tells us it is. So that's probably the biggest news as far as personnel is concerned. I guess just a couple quick notes, just quick hitters from the media days. It's been over a week now, so I don't want to get too much into it. But Franklin did mention it will be an open quarterback competition, although I would put open with huge, giant asterisks, because I'd be very shocked if Sean Clifford is not named the starter before the Idaho game. But he does want to give Will Levis some reps with the ones and the twos, because Levis, being the clear backup now, he was basically with the scout team all last year as far as getting reps is concerned. So this is he wants to give Levis an opportunity to see what he can do with the starters and the backups, see how he fares, because you never know if Clifford gets dinged up at some point or has to step out for a little bit for series, then he's going to be the next man up. So it's important that he gets some reps. But I'd be very shocked if Sean Clifford is not named the starter by the end of camp. He also mentioned how defensively, this is the fastest team that he's been around in all his years of coaching. Now, obviously, I've heard this comment made by the coach many times, so I do take it with a bit of a grain of salt. But he's certainly not wrong with that. I mean, we look at what's got on the D line with Gross-Matos, Shaka Tony, Shane Simmons. If he's healthy this year, he could be a real pass rusher off the edge. We got Micah Parsons, Cam Brown. In the backfield, in the secondary, you've got John Reed, Castro Fields, and you got some, and you got Garrett Taylor back there. So you got some real athleticism amongst that defense. So I can see where he's coming from with that comment. Franklin also came out and he defended the alignment of the Big Ten conferences. Doesn't think that's changing anytime soon, but he did say that there needs to be an honest discussion about having consistency across the board between, I guess, I'm assuming he meant all the college football conferences, as far as, do you want to play an 8 or a 9 game schedule? Because the Big Ten, the other issue is the Big Ten has been missing out. They missed out on the playoffs the last 2 years. And the last one went to the playoffs. Ohio State got blanked by Clemson. So they're looking to put on a better showing in the playoffs. So that's another issue that came up. But that was I tried to find some quotes from the players who were present at the media days, when that was Cam Brown, linebacker, Blake Gillikin, the punter, and John Reed, cornerback. I couldn't really find much. I think Reed just also like Franklin, praised the speed on the defense. And there's a quote from him saying, I'm probably paraphrasing it, but he said, "We've always had speed off the edge, but now we have real sprinters that are big bodies that will be able to move people." So he's pretty bullish on the defense as well. That's about it from the media days. Just wanted to hit on that real quickly. Obviously, I touched on already, the big thing is fall camp starts next Friday. So there will be, I'm sure, plenty more news in the next couple weeks following that we can touch upon. The big event going on this weekend, though, for Penn State is the Lash Bash. It's a yearly summer recruiting event. They have all the committed and also big time targets that they're looking at show up on campus, and they have a little cookout. I think they all jump in the Penn State's natatorium pool outside and have a good time, showing the facilities, of course, and the campus. And so now they got some, as far as big name prospects. I think the most important name showing up is the 2020 tight end Theo Johnson. He's a 4-star kid out of I believe Canada originally. He's looking at Penn State Penn State had him on campus back in the spring for Blue White Weekend. I think it was twice in the spring, but it seemed that he was trending away towards Michigan at some point. and Michigan's still very much is still in the mix, as along with Georgia and Iowa. But getting him back on campus is huge, especially because he's not poised to visit again until October for the for the whiteout game against Michigan. Although from reading some notes here in 24/7, it sounds like he may potentially visit for a game in September. Apparently, his brother plays on Buffalo, who is playing at Penn State on September 7th. So he could make a surprise appearance for that game as well. But nonetheless, getting him back for this summer event is huge as far as trying to regain some momentum with him, keep having a shot at him, because they do. I know the staff does want to take a tight end for this class, so getting him is huge. I wouldn't expect any commitments this weekend based on what I'm reading. Just some other noteworthy things. There's a few 2022 kids that are making this trip too, so it's an opportunity for the staff to actually get in on some underclassmen, guys that just finished their sophomore years in high school and are coming up as juniors this fall. So I guess one name to keep an eye out on is Tevin White, running back out of North Stafford, Virginia, which I believe is the same school where Devin Ford just came from, who Devin Ford I mentioned before is the incoming freshman running back who could see himself in the rotation this year. So that's about it as far as Penn State news for now. There's definitely going to be more in the coming weeks with fall camp starting next Friday. So I'm sure we'll be back on here a few weeks from now, talking about who's been impressing, who's stepping up on that young offense. Is that defense as good as advertised? How's the special teams looking now with Joe Lorig running the show? So there's going to be a lot more to talk about, I think, in a few weeks from now.
Yeah, as you mentioned, when it comes to Journey Brown, he only had 8 carries last year in a pass reception. So a guy as talented as Noah Cain, who's a top 100 national recruit, regardless of position, top 5 or 6 at the running back spot. Obviously, he's an ultra-talented kid who's going to be pushing for carries right out of the gate. So that's going to be interesting to see if he pushes Ricky Slade for carries, because it's a crowded backfield in regards to talent. You mentioned Yatir Gross-Matos in his exceptional play last year and missing the individual workouts. And great players always want to be in the workouts and getting better. And I'm sure his regiment kind of closed the gap on that. But I know that he made a lot of disruptive plays last year. I just checked out the stats: 20 tackles for loss. You don't see that number very often. So that's a lot of disruptive plays out of him. And that kind of speaks to the entire defense's play in 2018. As you mentioned, they were as disruptive as just about any unit in the country, led the FBS in sacks per game. And that's kind of what I'm coming across when it comes to Penn State. Some people are big on Penn State because they think that they'll be able to fill the offensive voids, and McSorley being a legend on one hand, but also Sean Clifford's great passing ability, maybe making up for that and making it a better passing attack than kind of a stagnant downfield passing attack that we saw in 2018. But then you got people in the other side of the camp that just think that the division's just too strong, and with all the changes and with the offensive uncertainties, that Penn State's going to take a step back. So yeah, that's for future discussions as we get into fall camp in regards to keeping an eye on that quarterback situation and the inexperience at wide receiver as well. And
Yeah,
Tim, sure, go at it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you asking me another question, or?
Not necessarily. That was just my take. If you had anything to say, but you certainly set me up for a soapbox on the Big Ten in regards to the playoff positions. And the only thing I'll say here is that when you don't get an opportunity in the playoffs, it's difficult to win playoff games. So for the past 2 years, the champion's been left out. For the past 3 years, the champion's been left out. So I would argue that when you can't play the games, you can't win. I understand the 2 performances before that were abysmal, but it could be argued, number one, that if you fall into my camp and you select a champion, that Ohio State should not have been there in 2016. Or if you go with what a lot of people want, and you want the best teams. Well, Michigan State wasn't the best team in the Big Ten the year before. Ohio State clearly had an NFL team. So if you take that 2015 Ohio State team, maybe you got different results. So the Big Ten shows up to 3 playoffs and they win a championship. So that's better than the Pac-12 and the Big 12 have done. And that's pretty much on par with the ACC and the SEC, who have 2 championships, but they've been in 5 years.
Right. I guess to go back, you mentioned receivers and tight ends. I guess the one thing I would keep an eye on, that I'm keeping an eye on when fall camp starts, is who steps up amongst the receivers. We all know KJ Hamler's a dude. And Jahan Dotson, he impressed towards the end of the year. Can he take the next step and be one of the guys? And even more importantly, Justin Shorter. He's healthy now. He dealt with an injury, most of last season, which really stunted his progress. But I'm looking to see if this is the year he lives up to the hype and becomes a stud that we all envision him being. So I'll be looking for those storylines that I can't. Obviously, we know Pat Fryermuth, also a dude. If Nick Bowers, the 5th-year senior who seems to be healthy now, if he stays healthy, I think the two of them, you're gonna see a good number of 2 tight end sets of both of them in at the same time, and they could be a very lethal combination of blocking and catching the ball, like mini Gronks.
All right, Tim Aiden from Black Shoe Diaries helping us out on Penn State football with the Nittany Lions going to camp next Friday. That would be August 2nd, and we'll catch up with Tim just in a few weeks to get an update on how that quarterback and wide receiver positions are shaping up in particular, as well as obviously the rest of the team. All right, Tim, thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, Tim. Thanks a lot.